Well, good afternoon and happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase, your weekly call-in radio show host. And this is your call-in town hall and radio show. I'll be on the air for the next hour to answer your questions. I'm here each Friday from 6 to 7 p.m., so you're welcome to tune in, listen in, or you can call in. The number here is 804-454-1366. 804-454-1366. And I want to give a special thank you to WNTW for providing this free public service to you each week. It's a unique opportunity for you to call in, ask your questions. Again, I'm State Senator Amanda Chase. I'm your weekly radio show host, and I serve you at the state level, not to be confused with the federal level, which meets in D.C., and I've had nothing to do with the Kavanaugh hearings, okay? That's the federal level. My office is at the state capitol in downtown Richmond, and I'm still in my first term in office. I'm getting ready to complete year 2 of my 4-year term. I represent the 11th Senatorial District, which includes all of Amelia, all of Colonial Heights, and most of Chesterfield. I'm a Christian, conservative, Republican, and in that order. Boy, people are like, wow, did you just say that? Yeah, I did. I'm transparent. I want you to know where I'm coming from. Mike Pence first used that line, and I liked it so much that I borrow that line from him each week. So I'm not a politician. I ran on term-limiting career politicians and returning the government back to you, the people. And my goal is to be a representative who is transparent, accessible, and approachable. And boy, I tell you what, I've been accessible this week, and it's about to wear me out. Many of you are friends on Facebook. I have a public Senator Amanda Chase page, which you can go and like. I don't have to do that. I do that. A lot of legislators don't have Facebook because they don't want to be hassled with it. I believe in being a transparent, accessible, approachable legislator, that's important. And I've had quite a few comments on this week when I posted a scripture from the Psalms. I've been posting a scripture every day, starting with, I think it was Psalm 45, and working my way through the day before Election Day. I'll be posting Psalm 1, and I've had people to mainly from the left, liberals, who say they don't like that I'm posting scripture on my personal Facebook page. So sorry, I'm going to keep doing it until day 1 because I'm going to exercise my First Amendment right. And we are going to talk about the separation of church and state. We got a number of things we're going to talk about, but I'm not paid to do this show. I do it because I think it's important to stay connected to the people that I serve. And since being elected in 2015, I pushed for greater transparency, accountability, and accessibility in state government legislation that returns the power back to the people. And I would say, the 11 pieces that I had passed and signed into law this year, it's bipartisan. So I serve on 4 committees: health and education, transportation, local governments, and privileges and elections. And I also co-founded the Transparency Caucus, which worked in a bipartisan, both sides of the aisle, bicameral, meaning the House and the Senate, way to ensure committee meetings are streamed live and recorded to give constituents greater access to the actual work of the legislature. And for the first time in Virginia's legislative history, you can now view the work sessions or committee meetings of all the committee meetings that take place when the General Assembly convenes during regular session. A lot of you are going online and looking at those past meetings. That's because of the work of the Transparency Caucus. Many of the topics that we address on the show are issues that constituents have brought to my attention or issues we have addressed in the General Assembly, and we're not currently meeting. We haven't adjourned officially, but we're not meeting on a regular basis right now. We're supposed to meet again. We don't know when, to address redistricting. We'll talk more. We're going to talk about redistricting again today, so if you're listening about that, stay tuned. I have a little update for you. But generally, we meet January through March, and from time to time, we'll get congressional updates from Congressman Bratt. Eventually, hopefully, we'll get future Congressman Ryan McAdams to give us updates, hopefully when he's in office. But if you do have questions about today's topic, I invite you to call in. That's right. You can actually call in. The number is 804-454-1366, and I'll do my best to answer your question on the show. So a couple things, today is the big vote, and I don't normally like to talk about federal issues, but it's in the news, and it just happened today, Judge Kavanaugh's nomination. And a final Senate vote is likely Saturday afternoon. Earlier in the day, Republicans needed and netted a simple majority of 51 votes to invoke something called cloture, and that will end the debate and set up final votes. And I was watching not too long ago, probably around 3:30 this afternoon, when we had moderate Maine Republican Senator Susan Collins getting behind the Brett Kavanaugh, Judge Kavanaugh. It was a long speech. She said that she found Dr. Ford's testimony sincere, painful, and compelling, and detailed her allegations of sexual assault against Kavanaugh. The senator stressed that she believes Ford to be a survivor of a sexual assault. So Senator Collins is saying, look, I believe you, but I don't necessarily believe that that was Judge Kavanaugh because it's not consistent with the other things that we're seeing. However, Collins did stress questions about fairness and due process must also be considered. The Senate confirmation process is not a trial, Collins said, but certain fundamental legal principles about due process, the presumption of innocence and fairness, do bear on my thinking, and I cannot abandon them. Folks, we have to presume we presume innocence until guilty. He's not on trial. It's a job interview. Before Senator Collins spoke, there were protesters outside, and they kept chanting, "Vote no, show up for Maine women, vote no." Collins said she did not want her support for Kavanaugh's confirmation to be misconstrued as not listening to the voices of women. She also argued that previous justices appointed by Republican presidents authorized a decision reaffirming Roe v. Wade despite pro-choice opposition to their confirmation. West Virginia Democrat Senator Joe Manchin, another key vote, also tweeted today that he too would support Kavanaugh's confirmation. And he said that he has reservations about his vote given the serious accusations against Judge Kavanaugh and the temperament he displayed in the hearing. He said the judge is a qualified jurist. So we are definitely looking at a Saturday vote for confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh. And so we'll be continuing to follow that. But that's all unfolding right now. And I'm trying to keep up to date as I'm sitting here in the studio here. Another huge thing that happened in Virginia that you may not have heard about, but I'm focused on state issues, was a conversion therapy work group met today by the Virginia Department of Health Professions. And the real question that's coming down here with this work group is, what will professional counselors be able to say or not say regarding homosexuality and children under the age of 18? And Dr. Brown said that, today they were not making any decisions. They had no power to do anything. Nothing would be decided today. But is there a need to regulate? So what's happened is there were two bills that were put forward, one in the Senate and one in the House. Senate Bill 235 by Senators Surville and Wexton, and House Bill 363 by Delegates Hope and Carr. And basically, in the 2018 session of the General Assembly, legislation was introduced to prohibit a person licensed by a health regulatory board from engaging in sexual orientation change efforts with a person under the age of 18. During discussion before a subcommittee of the House, the chairman of the full committee asked why licensing boards had not addressed this issue in regulation. Subsequently, the Board of Psychology requested that the DHP, Department of Health Professions Director, convene a work group composed of representation from professions for which mental health counseling is within their scope of practice, meaning the boards of counseling, psychology, social work, medicine, and nursing, to discuss whether regulatory language is appropriate, and if so, whether there should be consistency across the boards. Public comments would be received during the meeting, and each person that spoke was limited to 3 minutes. Now, I was there. I attended. The big question is, do we need more regulation? Now, what happened is, once again, we had these bills come before the General Assembly, and both bills in the House and the Senate failed. Okay, they were in an 8-7 vote in the Senate. The bill was passed by indefinitely. In a vote of 4-2, House Bill 363 was failed. It was passed by, when we say passed by indefinitely, it's a nice way of saying the bill fails. So I basically got up there and spoke and said that I just wanted to reiterate that the intent of the legislature was clearly not supportive of any of regulations. We don't need more regulations. So stay tuned. We'll be back. We're going to be talking about separation of church and state and the First Amendment. We're going to continue to talk about regulations as it pertains to this very controversial conversion therapy. Stay tuned.
Lately, I've been losing sleep.
Thanks again for tuning in to Town Hall with State Senator Amanda Chase. I'm your talk host show host. I'll get it out here. Do you want your child to be able to talk to a Christian counselor or pastor if they're confused? I mean, there's a lot of this in our schools. It seems to be becoming more accepted among younger students. They're confronted with it more than probably my generation was. And, there's a lot of confusion out there. And so let's just say, your child comes to you, or maybe they don't feel comfortable come to you. They go to a youth pastor, and, they want to have that discussion. Under this new regulation, if this passes, they won't be able to talk to your child. And some of you are saying, well, I really don't want them to talk to my child anyway. Well, let's say you ask for professional help. If you ask for professional help, the professionals will not be able to do anything that would deter them from changing sexes at all. So that's where we're going with this. So it's interesting. There's the practices defined as conversion therapy are ill-defined. They do not occur among licensed professionals, and in some cases have been misrepresented in the media to include electroshock and other aversive means often portrayed as torture. These methods in no way represent contemporary therapeutic techniques practiced by licensed mental health providers. In addition, unverified media reports are often described to have been inflicted on LGBT-identified youth in coercive ways, yet there is no evidence that such conversion therapies occur among licensed professionals in these abusive manners. So you've got two groups of folks that are up there. You've got one group that's saying, we as the healthcare community are not doing conversion therapy. We're not doing it. There's one group that's saying, you need to shut this down, stop converting people. If you have a person of faith, there really is opposing views going on here, and a lot of issues going on between these two groups. One group saying, you're born that way and you're going to stay that way forever. There's nothing you can do about it. And then there's another group of counselors saying, well, actually, yes, there is, and we want to still be able to offer therapy for parents that want this type of therapy for their kids, or kids that are desiring that. Some kids are confused, and I think we should have options. Parents should have options for their kids, and I support parental rights and the ability of a parent to seek out help or counseling for their child and do so in a way that's consistent with their beliefs. And what this group is trying to do is shut that down and say, no, we want to regulate it. We want to tell healthcare providers that they could possibly lose their license if they do anything to try to deter this young child from turning from what they feel, the attractions towards same sex. So anyway, that's still in a work group. Nothing has been decided on that, but something I will definitely be following and giving you updates on. So I'll tell you something interesting that happened this week. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I decided that what I would probably do, and what I did, actually was talking to one of our congressional candidates, and they just made a comment that, they read a scripture, they read a psalm every day just to kind of, stay in the Word, and I thought that was a great idea. And they said, well, what I do is I'm starting with Psalm whatever psalm, 45 days from the election, I read a psalm a day and just go to the next one until day 1. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. Well, you know me, co-founder of Transparency Caucus. I post a lot of things on Facebook, and so I decided that I would post that psalm, whatever it was for the day that I'm reading. I'm also going to post it on my Facebook page. Now, I have a personal page, which is private. It's just family pictures and longtime friends, people who don't really want to see all my political stuff. And then I have my personal Senator Amanda Chase page, which is public, because I do believe in transparency, and I want you all to know what I'm doing in the district, where I'm going, who I'm meeting with, and where appropriate, meetings, viewpoints, political views. It's definitely more of a political page because I don't want to annoy my friends who aren't political. So, and yes, I do. It is a public page, so anybody can comment on them, and they do. And so I've had a number of hecklers, if you will, who get on there and have made comments about, you should not be posting scripture on Facebook. It's offensive. It's a violation of separation of church and state. And so I'm going to talk about it. So the term separation of church and state is not even in the First Amendment, and therefore it can't be violated. And the left craftily uses ignorance as a tool to silence those on the right, and I refuse to be silent. So here's how the phrase originated. Wall of separation was a term that Thomas Jefferson used in a letter in 1802 to Danbury Baptists addressing their concern of government intrusion into church matters. And in fact, the Danbury Baptists were concerned about the protection of religion being written into the laws and constitutions, believing strongly that freedom of religion was an inalienable right given by God. The fact that it appeared in civil documents suggested that government viewed it as a government-granted right rather than a God-given right. Apprehensive that the government might someday wrongly believe that it did have the power to regulate public religious activities, does this sound familiar? The Danbury Baptists communicated their anxiety to President Jefferson. Now, this is going back to the infamous Jefferson letters you hear about. In his letter back to them, Jefferson made it clear that the quote-unquote wall of separation was erected not to limit public religious expressions, but rather to provide security against governmental interference with those expressions, whether private or public. The left loves to twist the facts to accommodate their whims, and in fact, they have taken Jefferson's original intent, misconstrued it, and they have beaten us over the head with it to the point where sometimes I find even Christians regurgitating that same myth. So I just want to emphasize that separation of church and state does not directly appear in the Constitution of the United States. And if you go on further, you take a look at why Thomas Jefferson interpreted the First Amendment this way. And I'm going to read the actual First Amendment. It says, Congress shall make no law representing an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, I just want to emphasize something to you. It says Congress, underline Congress, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. I am not out saying I am going to establish a religion as the state religion. That would be illegal. That's against the amendment. Posting scripture on my personal Facebook page is protected under my First Amendment right of free speech. So, that is not establishing religion. And I'm also not Congress, if you want to get literal. So the Establishment Clause, the section that says no law respecting an establishment of religion, has historically been broadly applied to the federal government, which in turn applies to state state governments through the Due Process Clause, which states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law of the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court ultimately decides how far these protections reach. It's worth noting here that many of the colonists who settled in North America, perhaps most notably the Puritans, were actually fleeing state-established religions, the Church of England and the Roman Catholic Church, when they came here. The unification of church and state historically resulted in the persecution of those who did not share the religious beliefs of the state, and that is clearly what we're not talking about today. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Up next, Virginia announces the 5 medical cannabis I can't say that word today. Dispensaries. I'll get it right. After passing the Senate 40-0, the Virginia Board of Pharmacy chose the 5 companies to be the state's first medical marijuana dispensaries. And out of 51 applicants, the 5 companies chosen include 3 established out-of-state businesses and 2 Virginia-based entrepreneurs. Now, Jen Michelle Padini, who is the executive director of Virginia Normal, I've met with her numerous times, is very excited about this. And she's a cancer survivor and really advocated for this to happen. And so the medical, people are calling it the medical marijuana bill. I don't think it's the medical marijuana bill. And let me tell you why. I think I kind of put these into different silos. You've got recreational marijuana, which I do not support that. You have decriminalization of marijuana, which means putting less people in jail that have offenses. That's another category. And then you have, did I say recreational? So recreational medical, and then something else that I call pharmacy board regulated cannabidiol oils. The oils are very different, and the dispensaries will sell CBD and THCA oils to patients, and they have to be registered with medical doctors who authorize to recommend it. And the companies will have background checks done before they get their license at the end of the year, and they're going to serve 5 health service areas, or HSAs, designated in the state. And the PharmaCann grows, processes, and dispenses all in the same location. And what's significant is that the oils are required by law to contain a minimum of 5 milligrams per milliliter of either CBD or THCA and may contain a maximum of 5% THC. Now you're like, what does that mean? So basically it is oil that is used to treat. I've seen kids with uncontrollable, frequent seizures. They've come to my office, and I've seen the progress over the years after they've been on the oil, and it's to treat these epileptic seizures. And so I'm all for anything that's going to help those kids. It's also been useful to show help with people who have cancer and PTSD and Crohn's disease and some other diseases. So we have PharmaCann Virginia, Delitzo Pharmaceuticals, Greenleaf Medical of Virginia, and Columbia Care. And they are going to be putting this together for us. And so this is going to be a change. I will tell you, it was very important to me that it was pharmacy board regulated, because I've looked at and talked to folks from Colorado where they have completely legalized recreational marijuana, and I don't want to go that far. I think that's way too far. And, as a mom of 4 kids, we always talk about what's best for our kids. And so we have, in Virginia, being the most conservative state, one of the conservative states out there, of course, people are going to argue, yeah, we're a blue state now. I still argue we're a red state. But Virginia is conservative. And so what we've done is we put a lot of restrictions in place. We've said it had to be pharmacy board regulated where they grow, and all that has to be in a controlled environment and only done at several facilities. And so it's going to be a very tight process. And we're going to keep it strict and see what happens here. So there are a lot of people who are in pain. And so, a lot of people say this is much better than the opioids, especially with the opioid heroin crisis that we have right now. And the number of people that I've talked to in Chesterfield jails who say that they first got hooked on the opioids because of some type of injury, some type of pain. They get on these opioids and they can't get off. And I've shared very openly with people, I've got chronic migraines, I've had fibromyalgia, and anybody that's, suffered with or had some type of injury or pain. I talk to a lot of veterans who suffer with disabilities and pain. And, I want to do everything I can to ease their comfort in a way that does so that where they have to get a prescription for it from a doctor. It has to be supervised so that it does not get in the wrong hands, which is our kids. Because we know with our kids that, just if you look at cigarettes, you look at alcohol, kids abuse those, even though it's restricted by law to adults. Kids get it. They get access through their parents. And so we're trying to put in precautions to make sure that doesn't happen. So there's that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and you're welcome to give me a call, 804-454-1366, and let me know your opinion on it, 804-454-1366. But, I know a lot of people, especially from the evangelical Christian community that I associate with a lot, you hear the word marijuana and they're like, no way, no how, nothing. That's the way I was and still am to a degree. Until you start meeting with children that are in excruciating pain, can't function in life, and the current drugs available are not options for them. They don't work. They don't work for them. But they have found some success with these oils. Let them try it, right? Let them try it. They've tried it and it works. So let's just start in a small, conservative environment. We'll be right back. I'm going to talk to you about someone backing out of a fundraiser and redistricting. All right, we're back with more Cut to the Chase with State Senator Amanda Chase. Our town hall here right now, 804-454-1366, 804-454-1366. Thought it was really interesting. We're going to talk about redistricting right now. Governor Northam pulled out of a planned fundraiser for Delegate Steve Heretic, who is a Democrat. And why did he do that? Well, according to his Political Action Committee director, he simply said the governor would no longer appear because of a scheduling conflict, but declined to elaborate. We know sometimes these decisions are political. And what happened was that on the House floor in August, Delegate Heretic called the map that Democrats proposed a quote-unquote political power grab, saying that it replaced one form of gerrymandering with another. And he also praised the efforts of Delegate Chris Jones, who is a Republican out of Suffolk and the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. And Delegate Jones has been working with some Democratic delegates to produce a map he hopes will draw bipartisan support, which we did not see, by the way, with the Democratic map. Now, Governor Northam has promised to veto any plan that's put forward, saying that voters deserve fair and constitutional lines drawn by a court, not the GOP-controlled legislature. And I will underline the word GOP-controlled. My guess is that if this was a Democrat-controlled legislature, there'd probably be no issues with it. Back whenever the Senate Democrats were in control, and they drew the lines for the Senate of Virginia as it stands right now. Those were drawn by Democrats. So, there's a lot of push, as we've talked about, for these plans to have these independent commissions. You hear about that a lot from Virginia. 2021 is, and I want y'all to remember this because it's going to sound good to have an independent commission. But remember, what that means is non-transparent redistricting by bureaucrats that are appointed by legislators, so that you have, as the people, no accountability, no ability to vote them out of that position of drawing those lines. Right now, you have the ability to have that accountability that if a legislator doesn't do what you want them to do, you can pull the rug out of them, you can vote them out if they act in a way that's inappropriate. So I'm all for transparent redistricting. I'm all for redistricting where you know the political stripe of the person drawing the lines and that's not hidden. Now, I did, as I mentioned before, introduce a bill that would give your elected officials that you elect the ability to draw those lines with more criteria that would keep them from drawing those long finger-like tendrils down into districts where it's obvious what they're doing. That would no longer be allowed. My bill passed the House, the Senate, and was vetoed by the governor, unfortunately. So I found it very interesting under the Democratic plan, because you always wonder, well, why would a Democratic legislator go along with the Republican plan and not the Democratic plan? And I found this really interesting. And the Democratic plan, which was defeated, by the way, on September the 27th in a House Elections Committee, Delegate Heretic's 79th district was actually, under the Democratic plan, going to be significantly more Republican. Aha! Potentially making it harder for Delegate Heretic to defend it. See, it starts making more sense now, doesn't it? The Jones plan, which the committee approved on a party line vote, would have made Heretic's district a safer Democratic seat. Boy, now you know the rest of the story. So I think it's interesting. Politics is not a fun place to be all the time, but it is interesting. So there you have it. We're still going to still have to wait to figure out what's going to go on with this. So Republicans, who have a 50 to 49 majority in the House, as you remember, they did not respond quickly to the court order and instead chose to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court to have the ruling thrown out. And so with time running out, House Speaker Kirk Cox has called for lawmakers, he'd called for them to return to Richmond on October the 21st. If the legislature fails to act by the deadline, the court will appoint its own independent expert to redraw the House map through a judicial process. Now, that's what Governor Northam wants. He's betting on the courts being more favorable to Democrats than, of course, the GOP-controlled legislature. So, anyway, still a lot more to go on that story, so stay tuned. The 11th districts in question are mainly in the Richmond area, Petersburg, Hampton Roads, and any plan to correct the 11 districts found unconstitutional would affect the neighboring districts. So stay tuned. It's going to be interesting. I just find it very fascinating. You know, Republicans have worked so hard to keep that majority in the House and the Senate. And when you work so hard and you go door to door and you make those phone calls, as I have many times, and the grassroots is out there doing the same thing, it's so frustrating when the courts get involved in the process. And keep in mind that whenever the districts are drawn, they have to take race into account because of the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965. They are by federal law required to make sure that African Americans are not disenfranchised. So anyway, it's going to be interesting. Did you know, I'm switching subjects on you now, that Virginia health officials have identified a record number of human West Nile virus cases in the state this year? Actually, as of right now, we have 38 human cases. And State Health Commissioner Oliver is urging residents to prevent mosquito bites. And how do you prevent those mosquito bites? By using insect repellent, wearing long sleeve shirts and long pants, and eliminating mosquito breeding habitats by emptying items that hold standing water, including planters, bird baths, and trash containers. So definitely be on the lookout for that. If you've got kids that work outside like mine do, my boys are outside every day in the elements, mowing grass and putting out mulch. In fact, whenever I was driving to the studio, they were working on a job and I drove past them. So you want to be careful and make sure that you empty all of those trash cans and trash can lids and things like that. So be on the lookout for that. All right, the number here is 804-454-1366, 804-454-1366. Give me a call. I'm going to be on the air for the next, I've got about 10 more minutes left. And I'd love to hear from you. And I'm here again every Friday. I'm here from 6 to 7 p.m. and do my best to answer any questions you may have, input, and address issues that are important to you. And if you would like to receive upcoming notices about events, town halls, which I do every week on the radio, or I have done several joint town halls with Congressman Bratt and other legislators. Or you may want to get the weekly newsletter, which we have during session, and then a monthly newsletter, which is getting ready to go out to cover the month of September. Then you can visit my website at www.chase4senate.com. And during session, I actually send a weekly update each Friday, and out of session, we send out a monthly newsletter. Or you can always join us each Friday on our weekly town hall here at WNTW AM 820. And now I've just found out that we're also going to be on FM again. And we're actually in the process of testing it out, but 92.7 FM. So that'll definitely be an opportunity for you as well. So give us a call. Again, 804-454-1366, 804-454-1366. Let me know what's on your mind. What do you want to talk about? We've talked today about conversion therapy work groups. What do you think professional counselors should be able to say or not say regarding conversion therapy and homosexuality and your child seeking professional help? I know a lot of you all have expressed to me issues with this and pros and cons. If you feel comfortable, feel free to give me a call here at the studio, 804-454-1366. We'll be right back with the final wrap-up of Cut to the Chase. All right, we're back for the final wrap-up of Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. And, wow, it's hard to believe it's already been an hour. Time flies when you're having fun. Let me tell you, we've had a lot going on this week in the political world, in the news, and in the state house. So, the biggest issue that I have seen in my office this week has been separation of church and state. That's what people are talking about on my Facebook page. That's probably the biggest thing that we've talked about. And of course, the elections are coming up, and I want to remind you that the last day to register to vote is October the 15th. So if you have not registered to vote, keep in mind, think about the kids that are 17 turning 18. As long as they turn 18 before Election Day, they are able to vote. You can actually go in person. A lot of people don't know this. To your registrar's office. I know the one that's right here in Chesterfield near the administrator's building, right there on Iron Bridge Road, right off of Iron Bridge Road. You can go in there during regular business hours. I want to say off the top of my head, it's 9 to 5. You can go in there and remember to vote absentee if you're not going to be here on Election Day. And what day is Election Day? Tuesday, November the 6th. So make sure that you get out and vote. I'm going to close by talking a little bit about what R.C. Sproul said, that the separation of church and state is a quote-unquote mythological concept. While most Christians haven't adopted this label, the sentiment is echoed in many Christian explanations of the phrase and its implications. Sproul says this phrase does not occur in the country's founding documents. It's not found in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, or the Bill of Rights. It comes from a remark that we talked about earlier, made by Thomas Jefferson about the principles that he believed were implied in the founding documents of the United States. And there's a really good book out there, and I have not read it, but I hear it's good, by R.C. Sproul that says, "What is the relationship between church and the state?" The reality is that this phrase represents how historically the United States has interpreted the words that actually do appear in the Constitution. So don't let people fool you. The phrase was an attempt to provide a simple, clear expression for the rights inherent in the legal language of the First Amendment. Unfortunately, it has been neither simple nor clear even within the court system. Sproul says purpose of government is to restrain evil. The government functions to preserve human life, protect property, and execute justice largely through creating standards, agreements, and contracts. So I thought that was very reaffirming right there. And I am not recommending that we introduce legislation to declare a state religion. That would be in direct conflict with our Constitution. And that's not what I'm asking to do or what I'm doing. Simply posting scripture on my Facebook page, which is voluntary. It's interesting. Some people were making comments on there. And I just wanted to say that I welcome any position that you have that's contrary to mine. I don't mind a good old-fashioned debate. But I think it's important that whenever you're debating with your fellow human beings, that we do so in a way that is respectful, that is polite. And if you feel offended, ask people to clarify what they mean by that. Maybe you misinterpreted what they meant by what they said. And the other thing that I really don't like about Facebook is that you can never understand truly the tone in which someone is speaking. And so that's why I prefer to meet people in my office. You're welcome to give my office a call. My contact information is on the internet, Senator Amanda Chase. Do a search, and I'm happy to meet with you. Stay tuned next week with more
Where's
Cut to
the
Chase.
best news and talk? AM 820 WNTW Chester is the answer.